Hello my fall favorites and welcome back to another video. My name is Devin Taylor and I am the owner and baker with Sweet Notes Bakery. This is a part of my fall series called Fall in Love with Baking, and today you're going to fall in love with my pumpkin bread recipe. It is quintessential fall. It's got pumpkin pie spice, pumpkin, walnuts. It's delicious. Let's bake. I've got my trusty assistant Ruby here again today, and I already have 3 cups of white granulated sugar in here. To that, I'm going to add 1 cup of vegetable oil, and we are just going to mix that on stir to get that all combined. And through the magic of editing, I can either speed this part up or cut it out altogether. I'll spare you, I'll cut it. Voila, we're back. Next to our sugar and oil, we're going to add 4 eggs. You just want to give them a little bit of a whisk ahead of time to kind of break them up. This is just going to help incorporate them in the mixture that you already have going here. So we'll do this on stir. Now, let's talk spices, because the spices really make this bread delicious. So I have a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, and a teaspoon of nutmeg with half a teaspoon of ginger. If you're not a big fan of just ground ginger, you can just leave that out, or you could add an extra half teaspoon of something else that you love. I also have 2 teaspoons of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. The recipe I'm using calls for 2 teaspoons of salt, which I find is way too much. So I cut that in half and I have 1 teaspoon of salt. So we are going to sprinkle all of that in here. Now this recipe will make 1 large loaf, or I like to make mini loaves. So I'll be making 4 mini loaves, but you can do it either way. We're going to scrape down the bowl and make sure that our spices are getting all mixed throughout. Sometimes you get some of that sugar and oil mixture stuck at the very bottom. All right, you should have a mixture that is light brown, nice and smooth, and on the thicker side. You want to make sure there are no lumps in this because we're going to be adding the pumpkin and the flour, and we want to keep everything nice and smooth. Next, we're actually going to add a little bit of water, which sounds odd, and in any of my other sweetbread recipes, I don't do this, but this recipe has it, and it's always turned out perfect. So we're gonna add 2/3 of a cup water. Put that in. Now we're getting down to it. The star of the show, besides the spices, the pumpkin. I just use canned pumpkin. Make sure when you're buying it that you are buying pumpkin and not pumpkin pie filling. They look very similar as far as the packaging, but there is a difference, and we want just pure pureed pumpkin. And I have 3½ cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to alternate these 2 ingredients until everything is combined. So a little bit of flour, a little bit of pumpkin. So if this were a cake recipe, you would alternate your flour with your milk or your buttermilk or whatever your liquid is there. So that's what we're going to do with this, with our pumpkin being our wet ingredient. And then there was just 1 ingredient. And this is completely optional, but I have walnuts here. For me, pumpkin bread is not the same without walnuts. I like to crush some up by hand and throw them in the batter, and then I will also sprinkle some on top. It looks beautiful, they bake in, and then you know every bite is gonna get one of those delicious walnuts. So I literally just pour them in my hand. My hands are clean, always. And I just break them up. I find that when I chop them, I end up chopping them too finely, and then there's just a bunch of walnut dust. And this way you get chunks of them, but they're not whole walnuts. So it seems to be the best of both worlds. So add your walnuts, give it another slight mix, and then we'll be ready to put it in the pan. Just like that, our batter is complete. Look how beautiful it is. This truly smells like fall to me. I also have here my mini bread pan. This is a Wilton pan that I got years ago. I'm pretty sure you can still buy it like this. I absolutely love it, and it comes in really handy. For this, for greasing them, you don't want to spray these with Pam or any kind of cooking spray because they're still probably going to stick, and it affects how well the bread rises. So this is the same thing I say with bundt cakes. You want to butter and flour the pan. So just rub the pan with butter, sprinkle flour over top, toss it around till you get it in all the crevices, dump out the excess flour, and you're left with this. This is the best way I have ever found to watch breads and bundt cakes just slide right out of the pans. So don't mess with any of that or getting the bottom stuck or anything. This is your foolproof method. So I'm going to fill these about 2/3 of the way full. You don't want to fill them to the very top because they're going to take a while to cook as it is, and you don't want the outsides to be dry and the center to be raw. So about 2/3, maybe just a little over halfway. And I'm going to add some walnuts on top of mine. Pop these in an oven that's preheated to 350 degrees for at least 30 minutes. I like to check them after 30 minutes. This is not something that you want to get dry, so I want to make sure that once that center is cooked, they come right out, and I dump them out onto a cooling rack and let them cool completely. That'll take well over an hour, and then we'll be back. A slight correction on what I said earlier. The recipe actually makes 2 large pumpkin bread loaves, or for me, 4 of those smaller ones and 1 larger one. So it's just more delicious pumpkin bread to go around. And if you wanted to give this away, or you wanted to make a big batch in the fall and eat it all winter, this freezes really well. Wrap it in cellophane first, then in foil, and then I put it into a Ziploc bag, label it with what it is and the date, and it's good in the freezer. Take it out, let it thaw at room temperature, and it's just like the day you baked it. That way you can make a big batch and you can enjoy it all year and share it with family and friends. Thank you all so much for hanging out in the kitchen with me today and baking some quintessential fall things. My name's Devin Taylor with Sweet Notes Bakery, and if you're enjoying this video and my other videos in my fall series, make sure you give it a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so it tells you every time I upload new content. And if you've missed anything in my fall baking series so far, don't worry. You can just click the video that I've linked here, and that will take you back and you can watch all of them. There's only 2 so far, but we've got an exciting series coming up. If you hear the lovely tweeting and chatter behind me, that is my parakeet Houdini. He is very enthusiastic about baking. He is like the worst student. He only talks when others are talking, and he loves baking ASMR. So like my mixer running, the water running, me talking to the camera. So if you've heard that in other videos, it's just Houdini making a little cameo saying hello. Thank you guys again for hanging out with me. I hope you come back and check out my future videos. Share this video with someone who loves pumpkin, someone who loves baking, or someone who loves you. And if you want to follow me on my other socials, check that description box. I've got my Facebook, my Instagram, and my TikTok. Of course, I also have the recipe so that you can make this at home. And as always, go out and have a sweet day.